Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
And today we're going to tell you how we felt about Robocop. So Robocop, the remake to the 1987 film, the movie that a lot of fans have been incredibly trepidatious about.
Good word.
This movie, thank you, of course, is about, it's set in the future, and it's about this guy, Alex Murphy, who gets killed, this time in a car bombing that was set up in a conspiracy by the police, and other people are involved in it, and he gets tapped to become Robocop, and it's all about, this time, a corporation called Omnicorp, which is trying to get the people of the United States okay with using robots as law enforcement, and people are afraid of this because they're afraid that robots can't feel like people, and so they can't make the right kind of judgment calls, and they're worried about it being like a police state. And so so Omnicorp decides, well, what we really need, Michael Keaton, the face of Omnicorp, I don't care what his character name is, he's Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton says, well, what we need to do then is put a man in a machine. And so then the big question is, of course, is Robocop more of a man, or is he a machine, and which of those things is winning over, and can you program a person like you can program a robot? And that's where a lot of the focus is. Brandon, how did you feel about the remake for Robocop?
How did I feel? I felt like I was 6 years old again, playing one of my favorite games. No, not Cops and Robbers. I played Robocop.
Wow, okay.
And that's true. I definitely did when I was younger. So
you had a good time. So you had a good fun time watching this.
I had a good fun time watching this.
Wow, okay.
I'm gonna say this first. One thing that I didn't like about this movie was that it seemed to be just a PR campaign, either railing for or against putting machines on United States streets.
Oh, see, but you got to be careful when you say for or against. If you're saying it's a PR campaign, which way is it swinging?
Right.
Which way is it swinging?
I'm gonna say.
You see what I'm saying? When you say PR campaign, okay, but that means it's not a PR campaign, right?
Okay.
That means that it's doing social commentary and it's letting the viewers decide. Do you feel like it's coming down one way or the other?
Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and make this firm. I'm saying it's kind of against it.
I think it is too.
It's pushing hard against. You're right. Social commentary against the nature of putting machines on our streets versus
replacing people.
Right. It very hard pushes the element of human emotion in these situations.
Sorry, I just didn't. I just felt like you can't say PR statement for or against. Right.
You're right.
I was just questioning that.
There are people who are for this type of thing in the movie.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely, but they attempt to and they kind of lose at the end, though, right? They kind of do, but they attempt to validate their point of view, and they didn't do a very good job, and they lost, and I think rightfully so. But that's one thing I didn't care for about this movie.
Oh, so you thought like you thought the social commentary was too thick?
Maybe just a little bit. One thing that I did really like about this movie was the fact that it was more about this. It wasn't about Robocop, as I mentioned earlier. It was more about the people behind and the reasons why you would do such a thing as Robocop. Yeah. And that's one thing I really dug about this movie.
All right.
And I'm going to say that's my like, that's my dislike. And I'm going to say, I'm feeling it. I would say go see this one. It's good for the big screen.
Okay, Brandon, this movie made me feel intrigued and socially conscious, but not especially entertained.
All right.
That's where we are, and it seems like that's the big difference between us. Boy, I latched on to some of the ideas in this movie. First of all, I went into this movie not really expecting to like it, and I think it's really impossible, knowing the original, not to compare them.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about some of those comparisons a little bit later. But I think the thing I liked the most about it was that it made me think about stuff, But there's certainly a lot of thematic stuff going on in this. I kind of expected it to be about nothing. I kind of figured it would be a big shoot 'em up fest.
And that's what you went in there thinking.
And then the problem is, it's not especially entertaining to me. Like that's what's weird is so I'm not saying that it should have been that, because that's what I was afraid of. And I'm not trying to I don't mean to have a grass is always greener mentality, but I guess what I'm saying is I felt like it could have done a better job integrating those things. It was a little slow for me.
It did have kind of a slow pacing on it.
Yeah, and I didn't, and I think the thing that but anyway, so the thing I really liked about it, like I said, is the social commentary. I guess I dug that a little bit more than you did. It's talking about some different things than the first movie did. It's talking about some of those same things, but it's going in different directions with them, which I really appreciated. I like that they didn't just try to make the same movie again. Some people I've heard say it either missed the point of Robocop, or before it came out they were afraid that it would. I feel like it's doing a different thing, so I'm glad
does do
that
a different thing.
It doesn't replace it. It's a different movie. But the problem is I didn't like Robocop.
Right.
That's the thing I most disliked about it, is that the focus is so much on the politics and the company behind Robocop that I think that it wants me to think that it's done enough legwork to make me like this guy. But he's a blank slate all the way through. Like before he becomes Robocop, you get a lot more time with him than you did the original Alex Murphy in the first Robocop. But I think that movie was doing some stuff with that. Here, you get just enough time with him that the movie thinks that this is my read on it, that the movie thinks that it has coaxed you into caring about this guy and his family. But the problem is, he seemed really generic to me.
Yeah, two-dimensional.
Yeah, and there wasn't much to him. There wasn't a lot of personality there. He didn't have a lot of stage presence. I didn't care about him before he became Robocop, and then when he became Robocop, I was a lot more interested in the politics and the other people behind him. I thought that Gary Oldman's character, the doctor guy, who creates Robocop, I thought that he was actually quite interesting. And even Michael Keaton is somewhat of a two-dimensional stereotypical CEO, but he brings a lot of charisma to it.
True enough.
And so I cared more about that guy too. The sign flip on this one is really tough for me, and because it's, like I said, it's got different things going for it than the original. Folks that really love Robocop, that really don't like this movie, and I know that there are plenty of those, hear me out when I say this. I feel like if I had seen this without seeing the original, I would have loved it.
Yeah.
Or loved it more than I did. It's really hard not to compare them. And yet, I'm having a really hard time saying don't go see it, because I think that there are some interesting ideas. The biggest thing that it's doing is kind of playing with the question of whether or not it's more important for people to be safe or for people to have freedom. Freedom versus safety is a big thing in this.
Absolutely.
And it's also not a satire like the original. This one is much more mainstream, dramatic, futuristic sci-fi drama. Dramatic drama, really. Dramatic sci-fi story. And so I can't expect the same things from the original.
Sure.
It's not a great movie, but I'm going to very finicky say I'm feeling it. I don't want to say don't go see it. Like, I think I'm glad I saw it is the thing. Mostly for performances and for some of those ideas, but again, it's sort of like Man of Steel, where like I really latched onto a lot of ideas, but I don't know how much I cared about some of the people involved.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. So I'm really conflicted on this one.
So to the people that would necessarily say it missed the point of RoboCop, would you counter that it's not that it missed the point, it's that RoboCop was actually kind of a backstory of what these other guys were doing. It went in a totally different direction.
Yeah, it went in a different direction. That's the thing. I heard some people when the trailers came out complaining about how different it was. But my counter is, why make the same movie again? The thing is, I think the original RoboCop really holds up. So if they're going to remake it, it needs to be something different.
Then this is a different movie. It's more about the social. It's more about the social.
It's most certainly not a better movie.
Right.
It's definitely not a more entertaining movie.
Right. I would agree completely.
And I got halfway through it and felt like it was a little bit humorless. There was a lot more levity after he initially becomes RoboCop, and
there's a couple of one-liners too.
There's a couple of one-liners. There's a couple of kind of fun scenes here and there. I really like Jackie Earle Haley's character. that's the guy who played Rorschach in Watchmen.
Okay.
And he's in this as the one guy who's very he's this like old military guy who's working for Omnicorp, and he's kind of putting Robocop through his paces. And in a way, he's sort of his Q. I mean, like 007 Q in that he gives him the weapons and stuff. Except that he really doesn't like him, and he keeps swearing that he's dealing with a machine. And not a person, and he keeps calling it and stuff.
And he doesn't think a man can perform as well. And he spends most of the movie, he spends the first half of the movie kind of trying to prove that, and he spends the second half kind of trying to hold on to him as property.
Exactly, and I think trying to prove that they had turned him into a machine.
Yes, as a matter of fact,
I was wondering about that for a minute, but
he was unconvinced that a man could do the job, and then when they made the changes to him, he's all like, well, now this is mine. Like, that's mine, and we've created this, and this is the future. He's almost for it, it would seem.
One of the ideas that I thought was kind of neat in this was, I mean, obviously there's a lot of free will versus nature stuff,
right?
Free will versus programming stuff, and I don't know, I thought all that worked pretty well. But again, the problem was I didn't feel like it was really coming so much from a character place as they were just kind of talking about it with Robocop in the background.
It's true. I feel like it wasn't coming from a character place. That's more playing into the social commentary of should we even attempt this to a human specimen type of thing. That's really what they were playing at through this whole movie. It was less about Robocop. I keep coming back to that, and I'm thinking the same thing. It was less about Robocop. So, like you said before, they really did make a different movie. It's not that it missed the point of Robocop. It is a different movie making different points to me, with Robocop as the background for that. Yeah,
and one of the things that, because I just don't think we got much of a performance from that guy.
We didn't.
But yeah, one of the things that I thought was weird too is that, like I said, the original is a big over the top satire. You're laughing at the violence. You're not laughing at the violence in this. And and I'm not saying that it has to be the same thing, but with the Sam Jackson stuff, I felt like that was a place where it got slightly more satirical, where it's like
over the top.
I felt like Sam Jackson's character was in the world of the original movie, and then the rest of the movie was its own thing. And I wondered about that. My biggest reservation about this movie, Brandon, bottom line, ultimately, is why did we make this? What is the point of this movie? I mean, yeah, it kind of is going a different direction and saying something else, but did it have to be Robocop to make those statements?
It didn't.
Right?
As I said earlier, I felt like the Robocop was kind of the backstory. I felt like it could have been another backstory, like
anything.
say the $6 Million Man. It could have been
that's really
this on top of that.
If we did a remake of the $6 Million Man, it'd be almost the same movie.
I think it would.
Potentially, it certainly could be. And I was wondering this before I saw it. Could we not have just done another Robocop with a different character? Like, did it have to be a remake? Like, couldn't you just kind of set it a little bit further in the future and have it be some other guy, and have it be like after the Robocop project happened, now we're trying to put them all over the streets, and the next phase of it or something? I don't know.
An army of Robocops.
Here's my big reservation. Sure. I'm afraid that what's going to happen with this is that like people of the next generation, like kids, people 15, 20 years younger than us are gonna see this movie, and whether they like it or not, if they go back to the original, which I think idea-wise and story-wise and stuff, it really holds up. It's still about a lot of things that we deal with now, but it's also a really fun movie. I'm afraid they're gonna go back and they're gonna go, well, they had those Ed robots, but they were stop motion and they looked silly, and our technology is so much better now. That was all part of the charm of that movie.
Indeed,
and
it
so
was.
I'm kind of afraid of replacing a better movie with an okay movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's still there, and anybody
can
go back and see it, but the problem is now we've had an update, and I'm afraid that, like, that's gonna be the... I don't know if people are gonna remember this movie. I kind of feel like this was mediocre enough that people might not go back to it. I don't know if it's making... if it will make enough money to make a new franchise, which clearly is probably what they're wanting. Who knows? But I'm just saying that, I'm kind of afraid that it's discrediting the original on accident. Because the thing is, it has some reference for the original. There's, as you might expect, a lot of callbacks and Easter eggs and stuff. And the theme song is there, but just barely. Like, you know, it wants to be Robocop, but it's kind of its own thing.
Well, what I see happening with movies like this is kids see it and they see this first over the originals, and then when they do see the originals, they're judging it by the thing they saw later on in their own time frame.
Right.
And that's kind of the problem. I saw this even happen with Star Wars when people went and saw episodes 1, 2, and 3 before they went and saw 4, 5, and 6, and they're like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
This looks so much better. I'm like, no, you have to understand at which this came out. This was cutting-edge technology invented for this and all this other stuff.
You see, my fear is that people that didn't see the original, if they ever go back to the original, they'll think it's silly.
Yeah.
They'll look at it and go, well, later on, we made a serious version of this goofy cartoon thing, and I'm like, yeah, it's a satire. It's exaggerated. It's playing with things with ideas of violence in this really grand, crazy, way out there sort of way in order to shed light on some real things. And this movie is just doing something different than that. But again, I really expected to hate it, and I didn't.
Indeed, I expected better things, but I was not surprised by what we got. I still enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed the attention to detail in the CGI. It was very,
I thought the effects were pretty good.
Put together. And
there were a couple things that really shocked me in a good way. I wish I'd cared more about that guy.
Yeah.
Because when you finally see him after his tragic accident, like you see how much of him is really left. You remember in the original Robocop, there's only certain pieces of him left. We now have the technology to really show all of it, and they do. And it should have been heart-wrenching. Except I didn't like this guy, so I didn't care.
It was shocking, but it wasn't heart-wrenching.
I love Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
I love Michael Keaton.
He's got a great performance in this. I think Samuel L. Jackson played his performance really well, what he had.
Yeah, he was kind of
the most
fun.
over the top.
Yeah, and he was kind of fun because he's barely a character. He's a talking head. He's basically just there to give you one side of this. He's the very
media
extreme...
spin.
Yeah, he's the very but particular spin, right?
Yes.
He's the like it might have been fun to have another talking head to argue with. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
like jump between
like a Pierce
channels.
Morgan versus a Bill O'Reilly.
Exactly,
type of thing.
and just jump between channels. It was really Frank Miller like that, in that we kept going back to the news, and we go to the news a lot in the original RoboCop too. It's just in this we have this one guy who's got an opinion piece and he keeps talking, and he's not giving you the facts so much as he's giving you this very skewed pro-military opinion.
He reminded me very much. He was playing a character basically like Wolf Blitzer on the Situation Room on CNN. That's what I got from him. And you're right. It would have been nice to see the two talking points, but when he had this, I'll say this: when he had the senator on screen and he cut the senator off mid-sentence, that was hilarious, because that really was him being over the top. Was more what the original RoboCop was doing, and that kind of played into that, but also played into kind of what we see in today's media.
It was kind of interesting, I think, using that to play up the format of the original RoboCop, but change it a bit. So it's got its own format, but it's still doing that kind of cut back to the media thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm really unsure about this one. You know, like I don't, like I said, I flipped my sign green, but I didn't love it. Right. I just feel like it was worth one watch.
You decide.
Rent it. I would say maybe this isn't even really necessarily a you have to go to the theater to see it kind of movie.
It doesn't have that kind of theater action you would expect.
It's not super theatrical.
That's true.
Well, the thing is, I expected, again, a big action a romp, and it's very dialogue driven.
Yeah, it's mild when it comes to action, but there are some scenes that really show off RoboCop and what he can do.
By the way, how did you feel about the black costume? Because everybody's talking about that.
Well, they got a one-liner out of it, and I felt cheap for laughing at it.
Yeah, but how did you feel about the costume?
The costume, because I didn't feel it was all that.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
I didn't like it.
I didn't. Well,
and not because I'm a purist. And if you're getting anything out of my side of this, it should be everything doesn't have to be just like the original.
Right.
Because we've got that. Why not? Why remake it? But then at the same time,
I'm on the fence about it.
I don't know that we needed this movie, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't care for the.
Well,
black.
they had at least
I just thought it
three
looked generic.
different. They had three different costumes.
Yeah, but the black was there through the majority of the movie, and I just felt like it was kind of generic. And now it was there. Now, I will say this: I was impressed that it was there for a story reason. And it does play in, it does have kind of a sort of fun, pseudo-metaphorical, thematic thing at the end that I kind of dug about it, because the black represents the period of him as Robocop when he is not human at all. Yes. And when he is being totally controlled. So, yeah, and by the way, the themes of manipulation in this movie are quite good,
and they're quite clear too.
Yeah, I like that. So I don't know. There is a lot to like here. I don't think we needed this movie. It's a little superfluous.
It wasn't necessary.
I feel like all of the things that this movie was doing with its social commentary and with its discussion of over militarization and the United States having their hands in too many pies overseas and all of the political stuff, I feel like could have been made in a different sci-fi movie. Oh, the other thing I really didn't like was the fact that the movie dates itself too hard. Couldn't we have been ambiguous about the date so that we don't? Because the thing is, there's a date thrown out, 2019, as being a date that happened prior. So it's not in 2019. That's an earlier date, but yes. it seems like it's probably not anywhere past, say, like 2025 or something. So, like, in just a few years, we've already outdated this movie, and the thing about it is, I don't know that we're going to have some of the technology this movie has by the time we get there.
Yeah,
there's no way that we understand the human brain well enough to get to where we get in that movie. The originally, Robocop was very ambiguous about how far in the future it was. You could make a case for it even being an alternate late 80s. I really wish that it had just stayed as, like, an alternate now, sort of thing. I didn't really care for that about it.
Well, can I ask you one more question? Basically, throughout this movie, one of the things that I remember about the original, it's been a long time since I've seen the original, but it seemed like no matter how fast the bad guys were moving, and Robocop in the original was just walking his paces as a robot, as we expected robots in the 80s, he always caught up with them. Got his bad guy. In this one, I was watching an interview about how they wanted to give him more of an assault, tactical type of run, rather than the old stomp, I catch up. Were you okay with that type of thing?
I didn't even think about it. Yeah, it worked for me.
Yeah, it worked for me
too. For you?
No, but I thought it was interesting because the way
he does have that slow, deliberate pace when he walks into a room.
Right, but it was they were giving him a special forces type of run where you kind of keep your head level, but you're able to still run with force and very matter-of-factly. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you while I was giving my demonstration, but very matter-of-factly, and I thought that was okay. I was okay with that.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
All right.
Well, anyway, that's how we felt about it. Like I said, I'm pretty conflicted. Brandon, I think, liked it a lot more than I did.
I did. I think so, too. It's, granted, not the best, but not terrible, and I think it's okay flick.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
And also, anything you think we ought to be reviewing in the near future, feel free to leave your comments and give us suggestions for movies coming out, and we'll see you next week.